Morning all, welcome to our session. I am Sheila Sutton with Coastal Credit Union, a Community Engagement Officer, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. And I'm going to allow the panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Shemekka, Ebony, co-founder of the Crown Campaign.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ashleigh Dunston. I'm a district court judge here in Wake County.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Murdock and proud to serve as a state senator, North Carolina Senate District 20 in Durham, North Carolina.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us today. We continue to discuss diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Although President Truman's executive order to desegregate the armed forces in 1948 has been noted as the first diversity initiative in the workplace, diversity and inclusion work began more broadly during the 1960s in the United States. It came about to combat the lingering racial tensions between Black, brown, and white people resulting from the civil rights movement. And here we are 60 years later, trying to still figure it out. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go to full equity and inclusion, which means giving access to all and promoting the best outcomes for all. Although we know that all races, other than white in the United States, are regarded as people of color, today our focus will be on those experiences of Black Americans or African Americans, and specifically women, in today's US workplace. We want to have a robust, revealing, and respectful conversation in which these panelists will walk us through their work experiences. And at the end of this session, we will share some suggested solutions to expand understanding, to help organizations to be more inclusive, not only in their policies, but in their practices. And with that, I want to turn to the panelists by first of all, posing a few questions, but let me share one other thing. Oftentimes, as our panelists can probably attest and you will hear, Black women's hair becomes a debated topic of conversation. Apparently the style, texture, and versatility of Black hair is intriguing for many. How many of you can relate to India Aire's song, "I Am Not My Hair"? So with that, I'll kick it off with a question to our panelists. And I'd like to start with, tell me why this topic is important to you. And also share with me, how did you start the work that you're doing around this topic? And we're gonna start with Shemekka.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for creating this space for us to talk about and have this real conversation about hair discrimination. When I think about why this topic is important to me, it really resonates with me, the lived experience I've had throughout my life, feeling like I have to explain my nationality or ethnicity based on how hair was growing out of my head, whether it be children in the classroom, whether it be curiosity of people wanting to touch my hair. What really shifted my advocacy was when I was in a civic class. I was becoming a notary, feeling all proud for my duties. And I had a stranger, a woman, come into my personal space and want to touch a head wrap that I had on my head because she thought it was silky looking. And that violation of personal space was something that happened to me in 2018 that I could not do anything about, but restrain myself from responding because I felt like my personal space had been violated. The advocacy around how I got involved in advocating for ending hair discrimination was birthed out of the Crown Campaign initiative to end discrimination and injustice. It was at that same time that we saw that protective measures such as the Crown Act was being introduced in New York with the Human Rights Commission, as well as at the state level in California. And we wanted to rally behind the lived experience of people facing inequities within hair discrimination. And that kind of fueled the passion and interest for us to create a grassroots space to amplify the lived experiences of inequities, because we've been able to tie this to economic injustice and inequities, health and well-being inequities. There's so many things that these things intersect, and we wanted to amplify a pathway to protect us from these forms of discrimination.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you, thank you. And now we'll shift over to Judge Ashleigh. Same questions to you. Why is this topic of importance to you? And what type of work? I know you do some work around this area. I'd love to hear about what you do.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Raleigh Chamber, for having me back again this year. I was just saying that I'm in the same courtroom again, somehow, coming to you live from my chambers. But it's such an honor to be here and to be talking about this important topic, which is hair discrimination. As for me, my experience is very similar to Shemekka. We've been doing this work together. She's been doing it longer than me, but we've been doing this work together, as well as with Senator Murdock, for several years now. So it's always great to see my friends and serve with them once again. But this work is so important, and it's really about our own personal experiences. For me, growing up as a little girl in Hickory, North Carolina, it was not really an option to have your hair natural, because we just didn't know what to do with it. And on top of that, we were already dealing with racism. And so, you know, it was the standard that you straightened your hair and that it was relaxed. And so I never knew what my hair looked like relaxed. And I never would have felt comfortable knowing what to do with that either. My mom didn't either, honestly, because that was the same standard for her. And it was whenever I started working here in Wake County at the Wake County District Attorney's Office after graduating from law school. I remember being the only Black female out of 45 attorneys working in this office. And I remember I had my hair dyed black and I had a half wig on and my hair was, you know, permed and straightened. And it was really just because I just wanted to blend in. I didn't want to stand out any more than I had to, being in a space where I was already the minority, but even more of a minority as well, and just didn't want to bring too much attention to myself. And it wasn't until I left this space and went into the Attorney General's office in 2015 that I finally, 2014, excuse me, that I saw other Black women that had their hair that were professional and natural, and had their hair in dreadlocks and braids and all different styles. And I was like, wow, I really want to do that too. And so after I became a permanent employee, a permanent state employee with my 2 years, on November the 11th, Veterans Day of 2014, I chopped all my hair off and went blonde. And it was the most freeing thing that I ever had experienced at that point, because I didn't feel like I could do it before that. So it was great traveling the state with my short natural hair and serving in this role as an attorney, and, you know, just demonstrating that our hair is beautiful and natural. And this was something that became extremely important to me as well as when I served on the bench. And so when I was appointed in 2017, the very first thing I did was put my hair out in my fro and rocked it my first day on the bench, because I wanted to empower the other Black female attorneys and young DAs that were there, that their hair is beautiful and we need to change this dynamic. And so since then, I've written an article that's called for the state bar, well, not for the state bar, excuse me, but for our local bar association, that was called My Crown is Professional. And I got 11 Black females with their hair in all different styles to show that it's beautiful and natural. And that's how Shemekka found me. And on top of that, now as a judge, I wear my hair in different styles every month. You can catch me with, might be a wig, might be braids, might be whatever. You never know what you're going to get. And I think that's important to show that the hair that grows out of our scalp is beautiful, and to feel secure about who we are.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to interject here that the three of you have stated that you work together, have been working together a bit. I did not know that. So I was drawn to each of you individually. So I just feel that it's interesting that we're having this intersection. So today, I think that's pretty phenomenal, and this says a lot about a lot. So with that, I'll turn to Senator Natalie Murdock. Same question. Why is this important to you, and how did you come about doing this work?
Yes, thanks so much to the Raleigh Chamber and also to Sheila again for having this very important conversation. And first and foremost, I'm glad the Chamber is having this conversation, because I'll get to workplace environment, headhunters, HR managers. You are key to turning the corner on this. As legislators, we can do all we can. But when it comes to the private sector, you all will be a huge partner in this work. So I can't stress enough the importance of this moment. And thank you for elevating that. So I came to this work actually from the policy perspective, but my personal story, I was raised in Greensboro, North Carolina, went to what I would call a historically Black high school, James B. Dudley High School, if there are any Greensboro folks out there. And so was very comfortable wearing my hair in a lot of different styles. It was when I moved to the West. So after graduated from UNC Chapel Hill, I was working in Asheville. And I can't say that I was actually told I needed to change my hair, but I felt out of place. Oftentimes, I was the only person of color in these workspaces, the only intern, you know, that was a Black woman. I worked full time as a planner back then for a council of government, and was actually the first Black planner they hired in the history of the department So I think for me, it was a mixture of needing to conform because I didn't want it to impact my professional trajectory. I didn't want my hair to hold me back, for one. And two, I think also when you're like the first or the only, you do kind of feel that responsibility to do everything you can to pave the way for others. And I think for me, it was a natural evolution. I did end up wearing my hair curly one day, and it was a big thing of, oh, can I touch it? And this is so different. It's so beautiful. And even the style that I'm wearing now as an elected official, and I know Judge Dunston can relate to this as well. It's a space that's different when you're an elected official. And first I was a soil and water supervisor and then appointed to the state Senate and then won a 2-year term. And I can't stress enough what it meant to me to see Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts with her twist, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood wearing her hair short and natural, when Stacey Abrams ran for governor of Georgia and was minority leader in the Georgia General Assembly before that, her wearing her hair short and natural. So now I think it has been a natural evolution where women have jumped out there and paved the way for us. But from the policy perspective, was honored and also have to virtually bring her to this space. Got to know Ajwa Asmoa, just being kind of on the national conference circuit. And she has been a leader in this space, working with Black Joy Collective and so many other phenomenal organizations and Dove to bring the Crown Act to life. So I believe it was probably 2018 where she just called me one day and said, we're doing a briefing on Capitol Hill in DC with congressional members, particularly those in the Congressional Black Caucus, with Representative Congressman Richmond and now Secretary of HUD, Marcia Fudge, and said, we're having a convening. We're thinking about doing something around the Crown Act at the federal level. Will you come to this briefing? And that was actually before it became law in California. So I had the opportunity to meet women from all over the nation. Again, back to the business aspects, a lot of them HR directors or deputy managers who verified what we all feared, that folks were being denied employment opportunities, promotions, not even hired for jobs because of their hair. They did studies to show the impact of grooming practices, and particularly in corporate America. So they laid all of that data out to show that we now have, evidence to show that this is occurring and denying people opportunities for economic development. That was also the time when a viral video was out where a young man in New Jersey was wrestling and his locks were cut during that wrestling match. So fast forward to, as luck would have it, or as destiny would have it, became a state senator and knew, we're following the Crown Act, we're doing it. And back to diversity matters. And so we now have 7 Black women in the state Senate, a lot of Black women in the House. And we honestly struggle to say, okay, who's going to file the bill, because we all want to file it. And so luckily, I was able to file in the Senate along with Senator Fushi and Senator Salvador. Meant a lot to get Senator Fushi. She's chair of our caucus. And in the House, a phenomenal diverse array of women from different parts of the state that have their own phenomenal stories. One was in highway patrol, and she remembers being, I believe, the first Black woman to be a highway patrol person in the state. Remembers how she felt and how she was reprimanded because of her natural hair. So we were thrilled to file the Crown Act, and also can't skip over our coordination with the governor's office. They have updated their HR policies, which so I'm glad that Judge Dunston let us know she felt comfortable at DOJ. So working with our state agencies to say, you cannot discriminate against anyone because of their hair, and having those specific hairstyles listed out to say, we have to normalize this. It's not a unique, exotic thing. We are just trying to live and do our jobs and not face any discrimination. So that is what brings me to this work.
Awesome. Well, thank you for leading that charge, because I do think this is such an important topic. And without folks being bold and taking those steps and making it happen, we can talk all day, but until we take action to make it happen. So I appreciate you for doing that, Senator Murdock, and all of you that are doing this work. And I appreciate the folks out here in our virtual world that are doing things in your company that we may not even realize that you're doing. So thank you. I want to say a special shout out to Wake County. You're going to hear, you'll hear a contributor video later. Wake County approved a discrimination policy based on hair recently. So this is a very timely topic. So I am proud of the effort that North Carolina is definitely making in this space. So I want to talk a little bit about, you all shared your experiences. I want to share an experience. One of my pet peeves, and I shared this with the council, I shared this with the chamber when we were working on the task force. I shared this, and I have to give kudos to Marianne Baldwin, because she brought this up, and I jumped on the wagon and said, yes, this is a great topic. Let's go forward. So I want to give her kudos for mentioning it. And she said she didn't know it was an issue. So a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. But one of my pet peeves is people touching my hair. Don't touch my hair. So we talk about those micro triggers and microaggressions. But I always encourage people to ask. Ask. If you don't understand something, just ask. Get to know people and ask them the question. But to put your hands on someone, that's a no, no, no. So that's my big thing, touching my hair. So back in 2012, I purposely changed my hairstyle. I used to wear it straightened all the time, relaxed and so forth. And I purposely started wearing braids and twists and afros in the workforce to push the issue. And that was in 2012. So I'm so glad that we are continuing to have this discussion, that policies are being put in place at this juncture. And I want to pivot for just a moment to talk about, we're talking specifically about hair of Black women, the different styles that they choose to wear and should be able to wear in any workplace. But I also want to equate that to how you can easily substitute something else. It could be someone, years ago, you would look on a chart, an org chart, and you'd never see men with beards. Or you'd never see, somebody might be looked at different because their head is bald, male or female. A lot of times, if you're bald, somebody may assume that you're going through a cancer treatment, especially if you're female. That's an assumption, that's not a fact. If you're wearing a type of headdress, it might be a religious headdress or some headdress that you choose to wear. So we can easily take hair as one thing, but we can substitute it for so many other things where we make assumptions about people. So I want us to keep that in mind as we talk, because we can easily substitute those things, but it detracts and deters from what you're able to achieve at your job when someone's making a judgment based on what you have on or what your hair looks like, or if you change your hair. I change my hair about every week. So I may see you tomorrow and look totally different. So just think about those things. If someone dyes their hair a different color, Judge Dunston mentioned having her hair not only natural, but blonde, and what that equates. So just wanted to share that. But I also want to share, in addition to what you all shared, about the health of women's hair. I had one contributor share with me, she had went on a trip and came back and had a big meeting that next morning, and she spent the whole night taking her braids out so she could straighten her hair. So I just think about that from an employment standpoint, how that employee showed up at work the next day. Were they their best selves? Probably not, because they were probably tired, right? From trying to get themselves together, if you will, for the next day. But I just want to point this out, this health statistic, and you all tell me how you relate to this. Other than just employment, research shows the pressure on Black women to straighten their hair takes a toll on their physical health. A 2019 study by the National Institutes of Health found women who regularly use chemical straighteners were 30% more likely to develop breast cancer. Let me read that again. A 2019 study by the National Institutes of Health found that women who regularly use chemical straighteners were 30% more likely to develop breast cancer. This is particularly important for Black women, who are much more likely to use straighteners. So tell me how that impacts your life, how you relate to that. We call it, in our circles, we call it the creamy crack. And tell me about your experience with the creamy crack, or those that you know that may still be relaxing their hair. How has that impacted your life, and what, just share your story around that, chemical straighteners.
Well, what I can tell you is that it not only, I do want to touch on the health aspect, but I would just say mentally how much it impacts you. I can only imagine that young woman who had to take her braids out, which can take upwards of 8 hours plus to take out braids, depending on what size they are, how much time and energy was put into that. And then in addition to that, to wash it, to condition it, and then to straighten it, and then be prepared for work the next day. So when we talk about hair and those kind of things, that's one aspect of it. And just like I said, just having to worry about that. And when you talk about, why are we talking about this topic? This is why it shouldn't be that we have to talk about, but because people have judged our hair naturally, and implicit biases has put us backwards and sent us backwards because of our hair being curly and not seen as beautiful because it doesn't meet the European standards. This is why this is so important for us to have this topic. But also, as you said, from a health perspective, not only a mental health perspective, but a physical health perspective. And I know when I went natural, no one else in my family was natural at all. Everyone else had their hair relaxed. Well, my grandmother and everyone on my mother's side suffers from alopecia. So my grandmother now is 94 years old and kicking and thriving and doing her thing. And she has no hair, however. So she's been wearing wigs my entire life. And then you get to my aunt, who now also has no hair and is completely bald now. Well, my mom, when I went natural, who also suffered from alopecia, was starting to lose her hair. And so I said, Mom, you just need to go natural. You need to let it go. And so she did, and now has a beautiful head full of natural hair. And she said, thank you, Ashleigh, you saved me because you took the leap to do this. And now my sister, my niece, so many other family members are now natural, and it's because, and we're saving our hair, because when you think about those chemicals, we don't know what is in there, and how it's killing us and how it's affecting our bodies at all. And whenever we think about our children feeling like they have to meet these standards, or we're setting an example for them, I think this is where it's the most important thing, is to make sure that we are fully healthy, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah, and I'll jump in with that one too. I think for me, it was out of necessity. I will be honest. Another thing about Black women, we are very picky about our hair. And I'll be honest, I was living in Asheville. I had a hard time finding anyone to do my hair where I really liked how they were doing my hair, particularly anything with chemicals. I felt it was over processed and dry and just unhealthy. I was driving to, so that people can understand our struggle. There were times where I was living in Asheville and I would book a 6 a.m. hair appointment in Charlotte. So that means I would wake up at about 4 a.m. just to get my hair done. And so that got old really quick. And so that's when I transitioned to protective styles like I'm wearing today, where you can, have a hair appointment and it can last, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, braids, twists, all of that. So for me, it definitely was out of necessity, but very similar to the stories of Judge Dunston. So much hair loss in my family on both sides, particularly high blood pressure medicine has a huge impact on Black women losing their hair. I think it's because we just don't do enough studies. When these medicines are created, they don't say, oh, what is this going to do to a Black woman's hair? So also with that health perspective, we just don't do enough research to know what we're taking. Will it have other impacts that we aren't aware of? Because oftentimes we aren't a part of those studies early on, but also stop the chemicals, no dyes, no relaxers for me, probably since about 2008, 2009, as a proactive measure to save my natural hair. We've all seen it. When your hair is gone, it's gone. If there is no hair follicle, there is no hair that can grow, because you cannot get it back outside of literally having surgery, hair transplant surgery, which is on my list if it comes to that. But you've got to catch it early. And also thrilled in the General Assembly, we passed legislation around natural hair care and getting licenses for that. And more stylists are getting ahead of this as well, and starting to do, there's a stylist I know who went back to school for chemistry at North Carolina Central University. She does scalp analysis. She really looks at the health of your hair, does something called a detox that I wasn't even aware of. So I'm also excited that our community is catching up, because the reason we call it the creamy crack, those products, again, weren't meant to say, what is this going to do to a Black woman's hair 40, 50, 60 years from now? That wasn't a concept. We are marketed products that may not be best for us. So I'm glad that we also have more diversity in the space as far as who's creating these products. And you're seeing so many more Black-owned hair brands, again, being from Greensboro. Dudley's Hair Care was kind of ahead of the game. But Madam C.J. Walker taught us years ago, we have to know what works for us. She came up with those formulas over time and tried them on, Black hair. So I definitely am concerned about that health impact, and can't stress enough the stress of it. I still deal with it. If we have really long sessions and, we're in session late, and there just isn't enough time between being a business owner and a legislator. And so even with this style, had an issue. I was trying to go from one protective style to another. And then sometimes stylists want us to show up with our hair all washed and conditioned, and I don't have time for that. I let them know, I said, guess what? I was filming today and I'm here and we're going to figure it out. So it really, really is a source of stress just to figure out, how to go from one style to another, and it impacts our ability to perform at work. And sometimes it takes a lot of time. And to Shemekka's point about head wrap, sometimes that's the best we can do. So yes, we're shoring up with, piece of cloth on our head, but we are still productive.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Shemekka, did you have anything to add? Because I'm going to jump to another segment if not.
Well, I think it was, if anything, I'd look at the health and the economic impact of this. When you shared that story, I thought about the amount of money that was put into getting the braids done, and then the amount of money that was put into the products to restore and recover, and then probably from the heat damage, the extra products that were probably in place. And that this is another aspect that hits Black women very strongly, whether you're assimilating and buying hair products and having these long waits of 8 to 10 hours to get your hair done to be accepted in the workplace, and that pressure that it does not only impact our emotional health and well-being and how we see ourselves, but also impacting our family economically as well, from taking money out of the household.
Excellent point. So I just want to add here, why this issue matters. I think the panelist has more than shared and expressed, why they do this work, why this is important, the impacts that it has. But turning directly to our workforce, what we want to focus on today is our workforce. We want to have an inclusive workplace, right? Where there's entry and access and opportunity for all. We want to have engaged employees where people can show up and they're satisfied, they're able to be retained, and they're producing, they're productive. You want productive employees. And it reduces, we talked a little bit about this, physical and psychological stress due to having to assimilate. You heard that described, that anxiety. There's an anxiety associated with that. And then just general empowerment of employees so that they can bring their whole selves to work and not have to worry about, I love that we're working from home because I don't have to wear certain things. I don't have to worry about tearing my nylons or tearing this or tearing that. So it works out when you don't have to worry about those things. You can show up and give your actual best. Here's some stories of some contributors and some of their experiences that they had in the workplace and how it impacts people being able to bring their full selves to work.
Hi, my name is Casey Four, and I'm excited to be here with you today to talk a little bit about hair. I have been in corporate America for about 15 or 16 years, and hair is such a big deal. Who knew, right? I did not know that. I have a specific story that I kind of want to share that I thought was funny at the time, but the more and more you think about these things, you realize like, man, I wish it didn't have to be like that. So I'm someone that occasionally changes their hair. I'm wearing it kind of straight and curled right now, but I've done things like braids or passion twists or, wear it in its natural state because it's kind of fun to change it up, and it goes kind of along with your lifestyle and what's going on at the time. So the story I want to share is that I decided to put my hair in Shirley Temple curls. For those of you who don't know who Shirley Temple is, we're going to have a whole different conversation. But she is a young girl who had really, really tight, cute tendrils. And she was an actress. And I had my hair rolled in rollers and put into Shirley Temple curls one evening. And the next morning, I was going to work. And a lady that I worked with that I would consider, kind of a good work friend, she's admiring it. She touched it without really asking me. But one thing she said to me that have stayed with me all of these years is that she said, man, I really love your ethnic hairstyle. And I thought, ethnic hairstyle, like what exactly does that mean? But the first thing I thought of in my head was it ethnic when Shirley Temple wore it? Because I didn't think so. I just saw it as curls and something easy to keep up for a couple of days. And, I just thought, wow. And when things like that happen, you have to make that instant decision. Is this a chance to educate? Do I feel like educating, or do I just ignore it and move on? Because one of the things that I at least know, and I won't speak for all women or all Black women, but hair comes up a lot. If you change your hair, people notice. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I really like your hair, but something like, I'm just not going to be able to get used to your hair looking like that. Or I love your ethnic hairstyle. those things are just never going to come across as okay, at least not with me. In that instance, I decided to pull her aside and talk to her about it, because I knew it wasn't said out of malice or to hurt my feelings, but it was kind of inappropriate and it could be seen as offensive. And we had a good conversation about it. We're still friends to this day. We talk about all kinds of things now, but it's really important that we're talking about this in this setting, because if you were to wear your hair straight most of the time and tomorrow you decide you're going to do a ponytail, no one's going to care. No one's probably even going to say anything to you. But when you're already a woman in corporate America, sometimes, let's just say in a male predominant field, the last thing you want people to really pay attention to is your appearance, right? You're there to get your work done and to prove yourself and to make good decisions and achieve those goals, whatever those are for you. So when hair becomes the topic of a meeting when you walk in, instantly, you kind of sink down and you're like, man, I just really wish we could focus on it. Like, I like my hair. I appreciate you making a positive comment, hopefully. But when the whole meeting is taken over by what your hair looks like and why you decided to do it, and oh, it was short yesterday, it's long today. It's an experience that's really hard to describe. So I appreciate that we are talking about this today. And I don't know, I won't speak for everyone, but I have a feeling that if you have a question about hair or you want to, talk about it, feel free to talk to someone that you're either building a relationship with or friends with already, to say, hey, I want to know a little bit more about this, because I'm probably sure that 90% of the time, most people aren't saying anything to hurt your feelings or to make you feel bad. It's just a matter of educating you. So I welcome the conversation. I'm sure others will too. And I'm glad we're talking about this today.
Hi, my name is Shanae Wilson. I'm the Community Connections Manager for the Budget and Tax Center, a project of the Justice Center. For me, I think my natural hair journey has been very rare when it comes to wearing my hair the way that I want in the workplace. Growing up, having part-time jobs or having jobs where I thought it was a standard that I was told that it was a standard to wear my hair straight. And so although I have been natural since I was in high school, I used to constantly straighten my hair because I was always told that's what is professional, that is what's preferred, and that I needed to wear my hair nice, neat, and tidy, whatever that means to folks. So it was very different from me when I started working for the Justice Center in 2017. I came into the organization and I was lucky enough to be surrounded by a team of seasoned Black women who were confident in wearing their natural hair in the workplace. And so it wasn't uncommon to see my supervisor at the time, who was Marion Johnson, like wear a head wrap to work, which I had never seen before in my life, or a good friend of mine, Sierra Zachary, wearing her natural curly hair, whether that be in pigtails or buns or what have you, or another colleague of mine, like wearing her hair in crochet, wearing her hair in braids, and just the diversity in those women who, again, had been at the organization for a while, just being so free in how they wear their hair. It encouraged me when a few years later, I did the big chop and was in like that in-between stage of my hair was too long to wear it in like a short style, and it was too short to style it. So it encouraged me and empowered me to be able to wear a head wrap to work, to be able to facilitate workshops and have a head wrap and a jacket and it be okay. So for me, the importance of the Crown Act, the importance of women of color, specifically Black women, being able to wear their hair how they want. There's a comfortability, there's a confidence, there is a freedom that comes with being able to wear your hair how you want, being able to wear your hair in a natural state and not having to spend time like going to the beauty salon to get it straightened or styling it in a way so that your hair, if you are wearing it in your natural state, is neat and tidy. And so for me, because of the example of the women before me, because of the environment that I worked in, I was able to move confidently and swiftly in my job and in the position that I'm in. And so the importance of the Crown Act is for us to be able to walk strongly and confidently in our workspaces in what we do and in how we do it, and not have to worry about Like, is somebody going to say something about my hair, or is somebody going to condemn me for wearing my hair the way that my hair naturally is? And I think also just the importance of organizations understanding our hair, because although I work in a very progressive organization, I still experience some microaggressions. I still feel like I have to educate people on my hair. I still get questions when I go from braids to wearing my hair in a puff to cutting it off completely and having it short, and when it grows back, the confusion around that. So there's so much power that comes from just being able to be your full self in the workspace, especially as a woman of color or a Black woman, when there's so many cases when we can't bring our full selves or be our full selves in the work environment. And so I encourage and challenge everyone here today. One, just if you're unaware of just what our experience is in the workplace, educate yourself about natural hair, about different textures of hair, and how you can be an ally in this movement. And I encourage my sisters, my other women of color, the Black women too, be the example. For me, working at the Justice Center and wearing my hair freely and presenting with my head wrap on, or wearing my hair in natural states, it encourages other women to come to these spaces wholly and fully, and being their full selves, regardless of what that looks like and what it is. So be the example, and I encourage everyone to just learn and educate themselves.
My name is Courtney Vinson. My natural hair journey started in 2010. Overall, I've had a positive journey. I have worn braids and afro, crochet braids, wigs, and weave to my public elementary school. My coworkers are always curious about how I have been able to achieve all these different styles. I graciously explain how each look was brought to life. I have always felt these questions came from a place of wanting to learn, so I'm always answering these questions with openness and sincerity. The one question that I dislike, however, is, can I touch your hair? I get this quite often, and my answer is always no. Overall, I have been blessed with my natural hair experience in the workplace. Several of my coworkers have had poor experiences at other schools. For example, being encouraged to wear their hair straightened as much as possible. I am grateful and blessed to have the freedom to wear my hair the way it naturally grows from my head.
Hi, I'm State Representative Terrence Everett. Clearly, I've never been discriminated against based on my hair or any other feature, but I know it exists. And I believe that whenever we can be allies, we should. And that's why I was happy to stand with my colleagues and be a co-sponsor of the Crown Act. Thank you.
So ladies, now I want to pivot to some solutions, because we go to a lot of different conferences, a lot of different events, and I'm always interested in, okay, we hear the issues, we hear the situations. What can we do to make a difference? How can we change things? So I want to kind of go through some solutions. Some of them I think I heard from you all, and then I'll ask you at the end to add input if you have additional ones. I just want to walk through a few solutions. So first I would start by saying, examine, and this is for all of us, examine your own biases around Black women's hair. Historically, certain hairstyles may have been seen as unprofessional, rebellious, political, or even just simply unacceptable, which has roots in slavery. How do you view a Black woman's natural hair? Whether it's straightened, curly, coily, kinky, afro or afro puffs, bantu knots, cornrows, plaits, dreadlocks, sister locks, or protective styles such as kinky twists, braids, wigs, or weaves in the workplace. If you're unfamiliar with any of the terms that I just shared about different styles, I would encourage you to familiarize yourself and your company with them. Secondly, if you have questions about someone's hair, once you get to know them a bit, ask them about it. Of course, again, we never want to touch anyone's hair or their person without their permission. Thirdly, review your grooming policies to see how professional appearance is defined. Is it biased or racially insensitive? Words like clean cut, unkept, unruly, fit, professional. What do those words mean? Have a diverse team or committee help review the policies. And I would say redefine those meanings or change them. Next, a new law, as you heard Senator Murdock share, has been proposed called the Crown Act here in North Carolina. Stay abreast of that. How can you help? Support the Crown Act. Write or email your state representative and ask him or her to support this. This is important work. Be great for North Carolina to get this approved. And next, even with the law in place, practices must be monitored and changed. Make sure all your company leaders are saying the same thing and have an understanding, and that there's consequences when a policy or practice is not followed. And the employees know what they can do when it's not followed. And then lastly, I'd like to add, I love the song "I Am Not My Hair" by India Aire. I go to that, I play that song often. Great lyrics, but this song was written in 2006. Let's let that resonate for a moment. 2006, 15 years ago. And read those lyrics. It says a lot about a lot about a lot. And then I just want to turn to our panelists and ask, are there any additional solutions that you might add that I haven't already covered? Shemekka, I'll start with you.
Awesome. Wow, Sheila, thank you for amplifying a lot of these solutions. Very quick call to action, tangible, having these conversations in the workplace are great opportunity. And I'd also encourage these conversations in your home, especially when it comes to our future workforce. Our children, our nieces and nephews, having these conversations within the home and giving them healthy solutions on how to prepare for their professional development. I know within my family, small hometown, Kinston, grown here, but there was a lot of pressure on get out, go do your thing. And some of those conversations around cut your hair, make sure your hair is neat. So maybe let's revisit how we're having those conversations on how our next generations are preparing to come into the workforce and creating an awareness and sensitivity to understand that the way my hair looks does not control, manipulate, determine my outputs and performance based on the skill sets that I have.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that. Senator Murdock, anything you want to add?
Yes, I think I would highlight, since we are still in session, again, can't stress enough the power of the business community. Today, we're here with the Raleigh Chamber, but also the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce is very, very powerful. Legislators listen to them and their recommendations, and other states where the Crown Act has passed and moved forward, the business community has played a huge role. So I look forward to welcoming all of you as a partner. We hear a lot of feedback from employers when you're talking about natural hair. Some folks wonder about occupational hazard issues and X, Y, and Z. So just having those open and honest conversations, ask those questions. Even folks that supported the Crown Act, that are my colleagues, still had questions. They weren't aware of these issues because we don't talk about it. We suffer in silence. So I also want to encourage those of you watching, talk to your employer, have those conversations, say that you want those policies to change, have that educational conversation to really talk about why this needs to change. And also, since it happened in my own backyard, I'm sure a lot of you are parents, I also have to highlight another viral story, unfortunately, of a young student playing softball that had to cut her hair on the middle of her softball game. So we've also found that we need to work with our local school boards to change their policies. Ironically, even though this happened, in Durham County, we were already working with DPS to change our policies and had our first inaugural Crown Act week. So we still have a long way to go. What we found is we still have state and national policies through the Athletic Association that still have these grooming policies of what hair is allowed and isn't allowed. So I still think our next step would be to continue to look at entities that are outside of our purview in government to say, okay, those policies still have the same impact. So how can we get those changed? And cannot stress enough, just having those conversations of just kind of revealing what is really, really going on behind closed doors for so many decades, and to just continue to share your story and to get it out there.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that. Finally, Judge Dunston, anything you want to add to that? It's a solution.
Sheila, I think that you definitely hit it on the head. In addition to what Shemekka and Senator Murdock said, I mean, I was really going to touch on the education piece for our children. The last thing that we want is them to feel less than at any point, or to feel like their hair is something that should be scrutinized. So really educating your children about beauty and beauty standards and how we are all God's children, and how we should value ourselves and value each other. And also just being really careful what you say in the workplace. I mean, I had an attorney come up to me on the bench one time after I never straightened my hair hardly ever. And I had it straight one time to get it trimmed. And the week before that, my hair was natural and out. And he says, "I like your hair better this way." And I'm just like, nobody asked you about that, and it's just, it was a self-esteem killer, because it was, once again, when my hair met European standards, I was seen as beautiful or more professional, versus when my hair is another way. And we really just need to change those standards and those dynamics. And so any way that you can do that in your workplace, in your home, in your church, in your community, please make sure to do that. And I just love that, Sheila, once again, that you brought this discussion up and that the chamber found this to be important. And I hope that if you were looking at first, like, well, why are we talking about this? I hope you now understand why it is so important and how it is grounded and rooted in racism. It is a form of racism that needs to be eliminated along with every other way.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that and adding that. I too have had that said to me when my hair is straightened. "I like your hair like that." So those are triggers and things that we need to be aware of. So thank you all for such great conversation and contributions to this topic and this work. So finally, in conclusion, I just want to say inclusion is a journey of learning and growing for all of us. We will not always get it right. We will make mistakes along the way. None of us are perfect. Be willing to lean into your discomfort and make a difference for the advancement of a more inclusive workplace. I heard a guy at Food Line, I don't remember his name, but he said, "Lean into your discomfort," and that stuck with me. And that's for all of us. And something that also stands out to me is, remember, in the words of Emmanuel Acho, he is the guy that talks about uncomfortable conversations with the Black man. He talks about proximity breeds care and distance breeds fear. Let's strive for more care. Thank you so much for your time and attention today on this topic and this matter. Thank you to our panelists, each of you, Shemekka, Ebony, for starting this effort. Thank you so much for the work that you continue to do in our community. Senator Murdock, for the work that you're doing to make this become a law. Thank you. And Judge Ashleigh Dunston, thank you so much for all the work that you've continued to do. I go on your website often to see what's new. So thank you for all that you're doing. And last but not least, I want to thank our Raleigh Chamber. You are a huge component of our community. And we can't push this to this level without you. So we thank you for making this an important topic. And to all of those out there that are working to make our workforce a better, and our world a more inclusive tomorrow. So thank you for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.